Yes, I'm here. Yes, it's Friday. Time for another version or episode, whatever you call it, of Faith Filled Friday. Before we get to, we have a minute. Before we get to all of that, let me switch glasses so there's not so much reflection. I just received a message from some of the pastors up in the Miami, Arizona area, and they experienced terrible fires up through that area earlier this year, which just decimated the desert territory. But now the major monsoons that we've actually had this year, and we're giving thanks for this year, have now devastated the town of Miami with flooding. And so the church in Miami is struggling a little bit, had a little bit of damage to it. So I put a note out to them asking what they might need. Are there things maybe that CPC work crews could do to help them? So very small church, not a big budget. So we may need to just send them some money to help with the repairs that they need, and we may need to go up there and help them with the repairs. I'll let you know as I hear. It is now 12 o'clock on Friday for another episode of Faith Filled Friday on July 30th in the year of our Lord 2021. It's Pastor Steve from Christ Presbyterian Church in Tucson, Arizona. So in prepping for today, thinking through, okay, what do I want to talk about? What do I want to do? What do I want to present? All of that kind of stuff. I decided to go back and do one of my favorite activities, and that is to just open up the Bible and read. Just kind of read and see what the Bible opens up to. Rebecca, nice to see you too. It's nice to see folks coming online with me. And so I did. So I opened up my large print Bible because I'm of that age now. And I opened up to the Old Testament prophecy of Daniel. Bleh. I've got to learn to open my Bible better. It's quite a story. King Darius is in charge, and he sets several presidents up to manage the territory. One of them is Daniel. And amongst all of the presidents, so you've got the king, and then you've got the presidents, and I was figuring out, where am I looking here? I'm looking at you over here. So in this hierarchy of people in charge, you've got King Darius, and then you've got the presidents that he sets up and appoints. And they then oversee different territories and areas. And lo and behold, Daniel, as you might guess, is a man of God, Yahweh, not a man of the gods of these other countries, territories, peoples. Daniel is true and faithful to Yahweh, the one true God. Hey, Dee Dee, nice to see you. Oh, my mother-in-law's on. Kobe, nice to see you too. What happens is a huge jealousy starts to appear between these appointed presidents because Daniel actually is a good man. Imagine that in a president. And the others get very jealous because Daniel really is so good and he is so successful at what he does and what he oversees that they get jealous of him and they want to get rid of him, which is totally sad, isn't it? That when somebody's doing really well, not just for herself or himself, but for all the people and for those above him and those below her, others around get jealous and want to get rid of him. That's what happened to Daniel. So they want to get rid of Daniel. And they're thinking and thinking and thinking, and they're spying and spying and spying, and they find nothing. There's just absolutely nothing politically, legally, really, that they can find. The only thing they can surmise is they know about his trust in Yahweh. And there was an edict, there was a law, there was a rule that you could not worship Yahweh. You had to worship the gods of Darius. And Darius was a smart man. He was respectful of power and of goodness and of Daniel. So what happens then is these other folks catch Daniel praying to God, which was against the law. And they report it to King Darius, who then has to follow the rules, and he has Daniel thrown into the lion's den, remember? Daniel's in there overnight. The king goes back to his throne room or whatever and awaits the morning. He doesn't eat, he doesn't sleep, he likes Daniel. He goes into this mode of penitence and waiting, hoping, I think, that Daniel would survive and that his God would protect him. And you may know the story. Indeed, that's what happened. According to the scriptures, the lions' mouths were closed, so they couldn't open them and they couldn't eat Daniel. So the king goes early in the morning and orders the den to be opened up, and there's Daniel, and all is well and all is good, and the king says, hey, we all need to respect this God. It's this wonderful story about how powerful Yahweh, the one true God, really is. Hey, Tammy, Marilyn, nice to see you. It's meant to inspire us to be good and faithful people, and to know that as a part of God's plan, somehow there's a protection for those who are really good and faithful. And that in and of itself is inspiring and also challenging, because we know bad things happen to good people. I think I'm pretty good. I know I make mistakes. But boy, I've had some bad things happen. I had a flat tire in the damn car this morning. On the red car this morning. So it's really hard to know what to make of this story. Do we as people of faith, if we're really as good as Daniel, are we totally protected from any danger in our lives? And I'm not so sure that's true. What I do know is that God is with us in the midst of the danger. Yolanda, nice to see you. Jean, hello. Nice to have both of the Rosines watching. We miss you. There's another part of the story that you have to know. After King Darius finds that Daniel is okay in the morning, he orders those who had conspired against him to be thrown into the lion's den. And of course, they're eaten by the lions. It gets worse. He not only ordered those other presidents who conspired against Daniel, he sent all their families into the lion's den as well. And of course, they were all eaten. Their spouses, their children. Yuck. It's really hard to get to the end of this scripture reading and say, this is the word of the Lord, thanks be to God. In part it is because Daniel is saved and he comes through the lion's den and things are good for Daniel. In fact, on the other side, things are really good for Daniel, and he inspires people to trust in God. And that's where we're supposed to focus in this story, that God gets us through. But golly, the Bible is full of some other stuff that's just awful. I think about those innocent children thrown into the lion's den. How can that be the word of the Lord? Thanks be to God. You have to understand that these stories in the Bible are not always totally factual, so I don't know. People are writing them down after the fact. You always know the fish story. The fish we caught that might have been this big really grows to this big, and it was a whopper of a fish that we caught, and who knows? I'd have to say I don't know what to say to all of that. And over the years of professional ministry, I've read about this story and tried to understand it, but I don't. And that is where, out in the general public, with people who are either not a part of the church anymore or never have been, they really struggle with our Christian tradition. They really struggle with this religious tradition of trusting in God, because you come to stories like this in Daniel, and parts are really inspiring and parts are really awful. And sometimes we have to say, we don't know. And it's not right. Now, you need to understand, it wasn't God who threw those children, the spouses, into the lion's den. It was King Darius. And he made a major mistake, I think. Instead of going to those other leaders and their families and saying, look how incredibly great Daniel's God is. You ought to look to this God and respect this God. He took out after them. And look what human revenge did. It ended up leaving us with a terrible part of the story, and I am sorry to hear that God didn't continue to close the mouths of those lions. I'm sorry to hear that King Darius and his people kept lions and didn't feed them properly, so that they were terribly hungry and had to eat whatever was in front of them. I'm terribly sorry to read yet again in the Bible a story about humans who misbehave. And that's what happened here. And the consequence of that is some people suffered because of it. And it doesn't have to be that way, folks. Daniel never asked for revenge against those who sought after him to conspire against him. He just wanted to trust in God and worship God. He wanted to live his life as faithfully as he could. And he did. And he wasn't out for revenge against those who didn't like him or were jealous of him. But human beings get that way. And they mess things up. So maybe this is really a story about our response to Daniel's faithfulness. And what do we do with that? Do we get jealous and try to get rid of him? Do we take revenge against those who take revenge against him or us? Or do we simply continue to do what Daniel did in the beginning and turn to God in prayer and praise? I think if everybody had done that, maybe those other presidents and their spouses and their children would also have been honoring and glorifying and praising God. But that human factor in us takes over sometimes, and we make some major mistakes. Have you made a few? I have. And I pray that I learn from every lesson so that I make fewer of them in the future, though I know I will still make some. And I know that sometimes the consequence of my mistakes may be the harm of others. We have to be careful how we live, folks. We need to be more like Daniel and just trust in God and go from there. May it be so. Happy Faith-Filled Friday. So you guys are going to be the first ones to know we're going to make some changes on Sunday. We're going to take the 8:30 service back over into Fellowship Hall. We have been waiting and waiting and waiting. And I know variants are on the rise, but we have been waiting. And we're going to encourage folks starting now to continue to follow CDC. which encourages us to wear masks when we're inside. I encourage you to come to worship if you're able. And if you do come to worship in person, I'm encouraging you to wear a mask while you're in person. The 8:30 service will be back over in Fellowship Hall. The 10:45 service will remain in the sanctuary. We're going to remain open to in person. We're also going to remain open to online. We will always be online. We are constantly trying to brainstorm over here ways of engaging those online in ways that we engage those in the room. Because we know for a lot of folks, being online is going to be important, not just for now, but in the future. And we have a lot of people at Christ Presbyterian in Tucson who worship with us online who aren't able to come in person. And we want them to know, we want you to know that you are as much a part of our church family as anybody who could walk or ride in a wheelchair on this campus. And we are looking at ways of involving you in the ministry and mission of the church. One of those ways is regular worship. So offering it both in person and online is important to us. If you get some ideas on how to engage all of you online, let me know. To make it more of a personal experience for you online, let me know. We know the human value of being together, and just being together in the room makes it much more personal. Now, how do we do that online with greater integrity and greater intensity? If you've got some suggestions, let me know. I'm going to be coming to you with some that I'm already thinking of to help you online. But here I am making the announcement. 8:30 service starting this Sunday is going back into Fellowship Hall. 10:45 will be in the sanctuary. We are encouraging everybody to wear masks. We're not requiring, but we're encouraging. And this Sunday will be communion. So we invite you to come and celebrate communion, or if you're going to be online with us, to have elements of bread and juice of some sort before you that we can bless together and partake of communion. We know that when 2 or 3 are gathered, God's presence is well known. And we just didn't realize that that meant online too. And so work with me, help me as we move into this future and enjoy the present. Thank you for being with me today on Faith-Filled Friday, taking a quick look at the story of Daniel. Be a little bit more like Daniel. Just praise and honor God. Don't worry about what others say about you. Don't take revenge against those who try to conspire against you. Just praise and worship and honor God with your life. And some amazing things are going to happen. Bless you. Happy Faith-Filled Friday. Let me just check. It's great to see, Nancy Shattuck, how nice to see you online. We miss all of you. But we're hoping this online experience expands. Bless you all. Have a good Faith-Filled Friday. If you're coming in after this live and you're watching it on our archive, good on you. I encourage you, folks, to take some time and to share this to your social media. Down in the lower right corner, you're going to find a little share button. And the more you share our worship experience or things like this, the more we get the word out about how God is working through us in Jesus Christ through this congregation. And the more we'll get into people's lives in their own homes, in their own motorhomes, in their own spaces, wherever they are. So help us spread the word. Grace and peace to us all. Peace in our journeys.